everyone, and welcome to the Buildings Development Council's first live event titled A Conversation with Leadership. My name is Britt Wilson, and I'm honored to be your host for the next hour. This is one of the many initiatives the Buildings Development Council is proud to bring to the Buildings Project Management Group in order to help you build your career here at Graham. This event is being recorded and will be put up on our Graham's YouTube site following the end of this event. We have an exciting panel of speakers here to talk to you today to not only share some insights about their career and how they got to where they are, but also to answer any questions that you may have about building your own career. I am joined here with Kim Johnson, Senior Vice President of Buildings and Shared Services, Colin Anderson, Vice President of Buildings Prairies, June Verhelst, Vice President Industrial Saskatoon, Jason Glue, District Manager in Vancouver, and Jeff Shipman, Senior Vice President of Human Resources. Kim, I'd like to hand it over to you so you can kick us off and let us know a little bit about why the council wanted to sponsor an event such as this.
Thanks, Britt. In general, given Graham's very ambitious strategy for growth over the next handful of years, the economy notwithstanding, we're still focused long-term on growing the company and expanding and bringing new people in and increasing our aggregate capabilities. Obviously, hand in hand with that is career management, career development. We want to make sure that people have the opportunity to advance and they understand how the company can support them and what they can do for themselves. I think above and beyond that, topics like career management, career development can sometimes be very abstract. They can focus on principles, and having a panel like this with people that can really speak about their own personal experiences makes it a bit more tangible and hopefully more relatable to a lot of our PMs.
Great, thank you for that. For all of our viewers watching online, if you have any questions, please email them in to infomail@graham.ca. And for anybody watching in the audience today, please make your way over to the mic stand that we have set up for you right there. All right, I'm going to ask all of you to share a bit about your career path so far. And I would like to start off with our panel member who has just celebrated his 30th anniversary here at Graham. Amazing accomplishment, congratulations again. Colin Anderson, could you please start us off and tell us about your career?
Thank you, Brett. I'd be happy to. So prior to joining Graham, I spent a number of years with a steel fabricator, straight out of school, engineering degree, and learned a bit about project management and some about business unit management. Joining Graham, I was the third person in the Regina office. So essentially you did pretty much everything. I was a coordinator, a field engineer, and an estimator at night. That carried on for some time. We grew the office. I was a project manager, estimating at night. Graduated from there to the district management role in Regina. And as part of that, we continued to grow the group. But I also was tasked with opening the Toronto office, which we went and did. After that, I graduated on to the vice president role in 2006. At that time, it was called Commercial East, and that included the Toronto group and the Saskatchewan group. Since then, I've come to Calgary. Been involved with leading the estimating project controls group as well, and continue to be responsible for the Prairies group, which now is the Saskatchewan group, Manitoba, and the Minneapolis group.
Great, wonderful. June, could I hand it over to you?
Sure. I graduated from engineering quite a few years ago, and I started my career in Saskatchewan. And I started my career working on a high-rise, and I photocopied shop drawings, and they asked me if I knew how to type, and I told them I didn't, so I ran the typing down the block, and I worked in that high-rise tower, worked on drawings and different things with consultants, and I got to actually see a lot of things. And then I went to work for the same firm on some different projects, potash mines, and some water plants and some wastewater plants. And then I came to Graham 14 years into my career, and really since then, it's been a steady progression of challenges and some excellent experiences. And so I came over as a project manager. And for anybody who comes from another contractor to Graham, you know that it's a challenge to integrate because you're always trying to bring ideas from where you came from, and then you're trying to find out, how to function in the large enterprise. And really a positive experience. Graham had a lot of resources and brought a lot to my career. And from there, I went on to be from a project manager to an operations manager, and was working to assemble a team and grow talent to do more scopes on industrial projects. And from there, I went to be a divisional manager. From there on, and then now I'm a vice president of operations. And so the market includes uranium mines, power plants, oil and gas, things like that. And really, my career has been a product of the market that I've been in, and I've always been able to thrive, and the opportunities have always been there. So.
Oh, wonderful. Kim, if you could let us know about how you got to SVP.
Sure. My career path at Graham's been a little bit more non-traditional. I joined the company straight out of university in the early 90s. I was actually hired into the finance group and worked there for a handful of years. And the company was much smaller back then, obviously. There was a decision made to establish an IT group at the time. And I took a role there and then ended up leading that organization, building it up through the late 90s, and that's essentially, most of that time was spent developing Toolbox into the early 2000s. And then I was asked to run all of our corporate service groups for a handful of years, the groups that essentially evolved into what are called AOEs today. And then around 2013, I was asked to take over the buildings division, which is my current role.
Jason, if you could let us know how you came to be the district manager in Vancouver.
Sure. So I born and raised in the UK, and I graduated university with a degree in quantity surveying. I initially started my career on the roads on the civil side, and I quickly realized that I actually knew nothing about construction. So I spent 2 years just really working hard, very long hours, weekends, traveling, and just put a load of strong work ethic into trying to learn and service everyone around me. I very quickly then realized it was very rigid actually in that firm around career, and there wasn't any individualism. There was a process in place, and it didn't really suit me as an individual. So I then moved to a more family organization. And I very quickly had the opportunity to further my career. I moved from assistant PM to effectively operations manager within about a 4-year period. So good for me. Obviously missed some steps there as well, which I've been catching up on. But it was a great way to move quickly into running a business. And I ran a couple of portfolios in that role. I then moved on to a PLC. And I had the opportunity of running a regional business, including P3s as well, which was a great experience. I then moved that into 2 regions within that business. And then there was a takeover. And I just felt there wasn't a cultural fit anymore. So I actually moved on to, again, a family business. And I ended up running their housing division. At which point I had the pleasure of holidaying on the west coast of Canada and enjoyed it, and for work-life balance reasons decided to move, friends working with Graham here. So I moved over 2011 as an ops manager. Thought I knew a lot, realized I actually didn't know a lot, and had to, reinvent myself to market and to Graham as well. And over the past 5 years, I've really enjoyed kind of, again, that reinvention and getting to know the business, getting to know the market, and just been really fortunate to have a fantastic team around me in Vancouver. And we're developing a really good, great business and having fun doing it. And I think the one thing I'd say about career is every time you move, you have to realize you have to reinvent yourself. Because every business and every move requires different skills. You have to be very aware of your weaknesses, but focus on your strengths. Focus on building a good team around you. And if you want a career, go get it. It's down to you. So.
Great, wonderful insight. Thank you. Jeff, I'm going to change it up on you a little bit, and I'm not going to ask you about your career path, but I know. But because of the position that you're in, you've had the ability of coaching and mentoring and working with some very talented leaders, not only here at Graham, but across some of the other organizations that you have worked with. And I'm wondering if you could speak to any skills or attributes you've noticed that these great leaders have had that you feel, if you want to become a leader, you really should focus on developing.
I think that's a great question. So my observations in having worked with probably 400, 500 executives over the years in a executive assessment format or development career coaching kind of format, I have identified what I would say is kind of a secret sauce in terms of what it takes to succeed. And before I even tell you what my observations are, I'll say that there are a few folks in the world who really kind of look at the research in terms of what predicts executive success, and there's some real smart data nerds out there. And if you take a look at the information and all the data that's been done in the past 50 years in wonderful journals internationally, in terms of what predicts success for executives, in construction or manufacturing at different levels, it all kind of boils down to the same thing. And I heard it a little bit from some of the individuals that were speaking already today. And if you boil it all down, it's are you smart? Are you driven like you cannot believe? And have you got some leadership capacity? And there's a lot of ways to be smart. You can be strategic, you can be analytical, you can be have great EQ or emotional intelligence and so on and so forth. But just boil it down, are you smart? And not a genius, but just smart. You know, you can put two and two together pretty quickly. And are you driven like you can't believe? This is not achievement orientation. This is not trying to identify what's next in your career. This is, I've got a goal, I've been given a goal, I've accepted an objective, I'm going to accomplish that. I'm going to knock it out of the park, and I'm going to do whatever it takes. And then the whole leadership piece, which thankfully is something that can be trained relatively easily, but some folks have a natural predisposition to creating followership, but you can kind of train that too, right? Now, the one additional piece I'd add to this is, out of the three, are you smart? Are you driven? Have you got some leadership capacity? All the research, all my observations, and I'd love to hear from others at some point during the day, during this panel session, is you trade every point of smart that you could for an additional point of drive. And the same thing for leadership. If you've got a passion in your belly to achieve, to accomplish, you bet on that person to succeed. And I don't care if you're a PM or a PC, or if you're a Graham, you're a PCL, or if you're at PepsiCo. I mean, that is, I think, the equation that I've seen. Yep.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. Colin, do you want to add to it?
Yeah, I'd just like to add, when I started with Graham, I mentioned earlier that there was 3 of us in the office, and that was 30 years ago. It was a very, very small team, and I guess we were afforded all sorts of opportunity to succeed. The challenges were there, and we as a group took those on. We said, we're going to get this done. We're going to build this company. And today, you look around you, you see what it's become. The seeds of all of that were part of us making that decision early that this was something we could do, and we were going to take on the challenge and we were going to get it done. So to Jeff's comment there about passion, I think that existed then. I think it exists in spades today as well.
And I don't mean to say that trio wasn't smart, because you guys were incredibly smart. But I'm saying you just wouldn't fail. And I think that is the piece that's at the center of it all, to me.
Okay, so we have had some questions come in. And Kim, this question is for you. Do you see any benefit to obtaining an MBA? If so, at what point in a person's career would it be most beneficial to complete? And has Graham ever in the past sponsored employees to complete one?
Okay. So it's a difficult question to provide, where I could, to provide a generalized answer. I mean, working for acquiring an MBA is, in my view, a very personal decision. It's a very individualized decision. For some people, it fits them. It's something that they need at a point in their career. That was certainly the case for me. My own personal experience, I did my MBA in my 30s, and at that time, the focus for me was on developing my professional management skills. So an MBA fit the bill. It's not for everybody. I mean, I'll say that that the letter, don't do it for the letters after your name. It's not a guarantee of advancement. It's not going to limit your advancement. There are far more important things as far as your career goes at Graham, and it can be part of the puzzle, but it doesn't define success one way or the other. So again, it's a difficult thing to provide general advice on. I would say, if I was to try to imagine something a bit broader, I would say try to do it a little bit earlier in your career as opposed to later. If nothing else, you're going to have the benefit of that expertise over a longer period of time. I would say for me it was a bit easier to take it on, before my children were a little bit older and the demands of family start to really take over your life. Because I will say that taking an MBA all on its own is arduous enough, but taking it on while you're working is particularly difficult. So my opinion is to do it a little bit earlier in your career as opposed to later, but if you choose to. It's not necessarily for everyone. You have to take a look at what you're trying to develop within yourself, and if an MBA program addresses certain things for you, then it's something you should think very carefully about. The last part of your question, has Graham sponsored people to do MBAs in the past? Yes, they have, although it's not consistent policy. It's very much on a case-by-case basis. When I did mine, the opportunity was there to have the company provide me with support, but I chose to fund it on my own because I just felt that I was doing it for me, not necessarily for Graham, not necessarily for Graham. But I know of other individuals where through coaching and a variety of conversations, they've been maybe encouraged to consider it, and in those situations, we've certainly either funded the entire program or at least subsidized part of it. So.
Really good to know. Thank you. Colin, over to you. If you could go back and give yourself some advice as a PC or a PM, what would that be?
I guess I would put it in 3 different buckets. The first would be remember that your career is a marathon and it's not a sprint. So take some time along the way to learn the things you need to learn. Second piece would be don't be afraid to ask for help. When you are hired, become part of the Graham team, we know you're very capable, but we also don't expect you to know everything. So be prepared to reach out and get the help. It's okay. And the third thing would be listen more. There's wisdom everywhere, whether it's the tradesman on the job site, whether it's your peer group, whether it's your manager, whether it's people in the industry. That wisdom is out there, so look for it and listen for it and just soak it up.
Thank you. June, what was your greatest stumbling block as a PM, and how did you overcome it?
I'm not sure what the greatest one was, but I did think of an example that is relevant to what Colin said. And early in my career, I was in my 20s, and I was doing work that I would say would equate to what a Graham PM3 would be doing. And I had received my first big project, and this project was a water treatment plant. And I was in Saskatoon with a very small team working for a different contractor, but so the technical work in the beginning had a bunch of embedded piping, and it was a unique brand of piping that hadn't been used before, and the expectation was that I, as the project manager, would draft all the layout of the piping under there. And that particular piping was unique, special, and I was at work every night till 1:30 in the morning, and I honestly didn't have those skills. I didn't know how to do that pipe. I was an engineer, so I was taught to grind out hard and whatever, but within the company, that expertise was there. And so then I had to step back, gather up my needs, and then escalate what I needed in a way that could be communicated, and then the draftsman that should have been drafting it was drafting it, and then there was support. And so although being tough and determined can be a strength, it can be a weakness too. And so that was one thing that I learned, is that yes, and don't be afraid to reach out, because especially in an enterprise as big as Graham, there's a very good chance that somebody's done it before or that someone can help you. So I would say, yeah, work hard, try hard, but don't be afraid to ask for help, or don't be afraid to reach out.
Wonderful. I would agree. Great insight. Jason, over to you. What would you say has been your PM brand throughout your career?
I don't know if you asked that because I keep going on about brand, maybe. I think my view of brand today is very different to what it was, but in simple terms, brand is what people see. It's everything we do, so it's linked to everything. And I guess I covered part of it when I was talking earlier. I think it, for me, it really starts with work ethic, because if you go into something, any career, with a view that you don't know anything and you just work hard, I think that's a great attitude to have in terms of learning. And then I think the other thing, whilst we're all individual, I think I always like to use the sports analogy, and you always look at different sports, and it's all about the team. And effectively, if you can, we all have strengths and weaknesses. If firstly you can be self-aware of those, and secondly you can be aware of everyone else's strengths and weaknesses, then you kind of develop the brand together. And I've always found that career is, whilst it's very individual, you're driven individually, and we're all individuals. If you have a good team around you, where you can create something where you get that drive together and you're getting the success together, then you're all moving forward together, and the amount of work that you get, that you have to do as a team, is a lot less than if you were doing it on your own. So I think my brand really is, as I say, work ethic, focus on trying to do it through relationships, through a team. And the reinvention thing, I think, is really important. I think you need to be aware that you tend to get promoted for something you've done, and then you move into something that is completely different often. And you just need to adapt those skills, and you almost need to press that reset and start again. And if you're intelligent enough or brave enough to actually do that, I think you can then kick on again to the next level. So.
Great insight. Thank you. Jeff, how easily do you think a person can move across the business units, and do you feel that this would help to accelerate someone's career?
Boy, how easily has it been in the past? I guess I'll look to my colleagues here and I'll say probably not so easy. I think Graham has done a lot of tremendous things in 90 years. But I think perhaps Graham has operated as a loose confederation of states, and everybody's been out running and gunning and conquering on their own. And what we probably haven't done a great job of is build people in the same way that we've built great structures or roads and bridges or whatever. And part of building great people is giving them great experiences. And it's not the same experience 10 times. It's 10 great experiences. That's building a career. So have we done a great job of it? No. Are we putting some tools and processes in place to get much better at it? I think absolutely, over the past 2 or 3 years, in large part because of the support of the people that you see up here. And it's Kim and Colin and Jason and June and many, many, many others who've pushed and said, you know what was good enough for the past 90 years is not going to be good enough for the next 90. And we're getting really pretty smart about some of the tools and programs that we've put into place.
Wonderful. So just a reminder for any of our viewers who are watching online and would like to ask one of our panel speakers a question, please email them in to infomail@graham.ca. And if you're here in our audience, please feel free to make your way over to the mic stand sitting right there. Okay, so the next question that's come in is, I'm going to throw it over to Colin. So Colin, beyond involvement in large projects, what other ways are there to be noticed by high-level employees who can significantly impact their career?
Well, firstly, there's a multiple of ways that you can contribute at Graham, and it's certainly not only on large projects. That's one of the ways. But to be noticed, I think you have to excel. You have to be involved with growing the company. You have to. I'm stumbling here over my words. You have to be open to learning. You have to look at the things that you need to learn as part of becoming better in the company, and that could be external learning. It could be discussions with your peers. It could be simply just taking on new challenges. If we're going to continue to grow as a company, mobility is going to be a big part of what we're going to be asking people to do. So that could be part of a large project. It could be part of a smaller project. And complexity plays into it. So learning the different parts of the business is important. So that whole broad range of experiences that Jeff was talking about earlier, I think that's important. So you need to look for those. You need to stick up your hand and say, hey, I'm interested in doing that. You need to rest assured that we in leadership are watching. We're looking for those people that are going to make a difference and are interested in sticking up their hand to do something more. So that would be my advice.
Can I add something to that? And one of the things that is a way for people to develop their external skills, because at Graham, we do a lot of work internally and we spend a lot of time inside our own walls. And I would say earlier in your career, step out and do be volunteers for the Safety Association and do go to the regional safety meeting and do step out and do go, if somebody asks you to go to the Mayor's Gala or asks you to go to an event or the Canadian Institute of Mining or whatever, do go out and do develop that. And you will find early in your career that maybe the people there aren't that interested in talking to you, but you will develop those external skills. And then you will start to develop a network with your peers as well. And then when you do go to negotiate a large contract with a client later, you will start to have develop those skills of having that external relationship, and you'll be developing that on your journey. So look for those opportunities and look for those opportunities to go along to a meeting, and maybe you're silent in that meeting, but ask to go along and then be silent and learn. And there's a lot of learning can be done that way, and there's a lot of associations around construction where all kinds of professions, even accountants, safety people, all the different aspects of the work can really gain a lot.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I think June's just captured such a fundamental point that it's really worth emphasizing. It's you don't have to be a senior manager or an executive to be an ambassador for the company and to get out and be visible in the industry and the community and be noticed externally and also internally. June's exactly right. You can personify the brand in a whole bunch of different ways. You can be visible through the community. There's multiple opportunities. And it's just a matter of stepping out, listening, paying attention, and you'll find a slot soon enough. And then again, just to underscore, I think what Colin was saying, which is equally important. How to get noticed, in my view, because I've been asked that question on a one-on-one basis in the past. My answer is very simple. Just step up and do the stuff that nobody else wants to do. The simple answer for getting noticed and advancing your career, it's not about making the right kinds of friends or politics or this or that or attaching yourself to the hottest part of the business. It's just about stepping up and solving the stuff that other people maybe don't want to do. And to Jeff's point, being driven about it. Don't let a few setbacks dissuade you. Just keep at it. The tough thing about a company like Graham is there are lots of problems every day to be fixed, to be solved, because we're growing, we're evolving, and it's new ground all the time. But that's also the best thing about Graham. It's never boring, and there's just so much opportunity for people to step in and say, I'm going to take this on, and I'm going to take care of it. I'm going to solve it. And if If you want to advance, that's the best way to do it, and to get out there, to get out not just within the company, but as June said, get out in the community, get out in the industry.
Great career advice. Awesome. Thank you. So Jason, is a key advancement working on large projects? I work in the Regina market where large and complex projects are few and far between. To advance my career beyond a PM2, will I have to relocate?
Tough, because the market I work in is actually very buoyant right now. I think the theme is flexibility. I guess it was answered in the last series as well. Advancement of your career is personal as well. So you need to consider what your short, medium, long-term goals are. Where do you want to be? Ultimately, some people can see absolutely that they want to be sat where Grant's sat. Other people have visibility for a short period of time, and then they continue to readjust their views. I never got involved personally in a very, very large project. I did a number of complex, significant projects. So it really depends where you want to be. Flexibility, mobility in a company like Graham, absolutely, I believe, opens a lot more doors. As the guys have said, go do something that someone else doesn't want to do. If you open yourself up to the possibilities within Graham, I think they're phenomenal. If you shut them to a region or a division, obviously they're less. So the other thing that I would suggest as well that I've benefited from is coaching and mentoring. If you can't figure it out, go and canvass a number of people. Graham has a phenomenal list of individuals who I'm sure have been there and done it. And the thing within Graham, that coaching and mentoring is culture and values and how we should conduct ourselves and our careers. And I think in my career, what we have in Graham in that culture is second to none. So ask people as well.
Can I jump in? Jason, would you say that it's not advancement, yes or no, but it's maybe the pace of advancement? So if you're more mobile, if you're more flexible, where you'll likely have more opportunities, and therefore the pace is likely greater. I'm not sure there's any way around that.
Yeah, I think we've talked about being driven. We've talked about work ethic. We've talked about doing the things that others don't do. If you open yourself up to the opportunities of today across the whole company, they exist. Right. So if that's what you want to do, I'm sure somewhere within the whole of Graham, there are opportunities that exist that people could step up and go and do that.
You guys going to fight over it? Or?
I would add that it's been whispered in the wind at Graham that you always have to be doing the job ahead of you in your career before you get that promotion. So there's nothing wrong with being a PM3 and rocking those skills and looking up and pulling those PM2 skills and really start working on other skills. And I mean, that's a way to advance yourself without sitting there saying, well, woe is me, the market doesn't let there be 5 PM2s in this place. You can develop those skills, and that will make you more likely to be selected for a project. And I would just say about the transferability, one of the things is that sometimes we're making decisions at VP level, and we may not know that there's a PM3 that wants to go to Vancouver when an opportunity opens up. And so we have to open up those dialogues and find out, and we may not know that there's a PM3 that has family in Calgary and wants to get there. So, those are the things we have to open up those dialogues and let people know, and there's nothing wrong with sharing where you'd like to be geographically or the work you like doing.
Plus, communication is one thing, but also there's the opportunity to do that via your profile online as well. You can actually, if you actually complete that and share all of that, then I know that the leadership team are looking at those profiles as well.
Jason beat me to it, but a plug for the Building Leaders site is that's exactly where we need to capture this information. June, thank you.
One thing we did miss is that when you're talking about how to be noticed and how to gain experiences, well, we have building builders and we have other internal initiatives. We have continuous improvement councils. They're always looking for feedback. And instead of ignoring that and ordering your pipe or whatever that day, like take a minute and give that feedback. If you're being asked for your feedback in the business, stop and make the time and give it, because those are the ways to get noticed and develop yourself.
Absolutely. Colin, did you want to add?
It's likely all been said, but what strikes me in all of this is that really think about what it is your goal is, and there can be short-term and long-term goals, but think about that and try to imagine the things that you need to do along that path. What I heard here is a whole bunch of opportunities for you to plug in and do those things, but part of it is you imagining what that wants to be, and you can get those opportunities in a number of ways. So around the question of, do I have to move? Not necessarily. You just have to be open to look around you, and there's probably opportunities in the region you're in right now that'll serve you just as well. So,
And I'll just add, I was waiting for the two people next to me with really strong Saskatchewan roots to point out, just referencing the original question, that there actually is a really big project around Regina right now. So, and I know they're always looking for good people, and we're building another big project and a few other big projects on the infrastructure and building fronts in Saskatchewan. So for the foreseeable future, you may not have to travel as far as you think you do.
So lots of opportunity. Great discussion. Kim, I'm going to ask you a question. What factor does having a Canadian citizenship play into someone's potential for a corporate position within Graham? This comes from a young and fairly new worker at Graham in the US. He enjoys working here, and he's a GIT investor. But in his next 40 years at Graham, is there a growth ladder that stops at the Canadian border that solely relies upon the expansion of Graham in the US? Or are there corporate opportunities in the future?
So I'll give two answers to that question. The first is easy. So there's absolutely no limitation on, as far as citizenship is concerned and being able to take on a corporate role at Graham. We happen to be a Canadian company. We have a Canadian head office, but U.S. citizenship is really has no bearing as far as whether you can work in this office, if that's what fits for you. We have people that work in this office at a variety of levels that have actually transferred in from our U.S. operations. We also have a fellow over there that we hired out of the U.S. From another organization to come and work for us. So it really has no bearing. It's based on the skill sets, what you can offer, whether you're a Canadian citizen, an American citizen. It's is it the right fit for you? As far as thinking about prospects for the U.S. generally. I think it's fairly well understood at senior and maybe middle management levels. Perhaps that hasn't propagated out as far as we would have liked at this point in time. But regardless, our ambitions for the U.S. over the next handful of years are very, very significant. Our mandate, speaking about the buildings group specifically, and I know the same is true for infrastructure, our mandate is to grow in the East and grow especially in the U.S. So although that the U.S. operations as a percentage of our overall revenue currently may seem smaller, and that may suggest that there's less opportunity, that is going to turn very rapidly over the next number of years. So you can come and work north, you can work in head office, or you can work south of the border. We'll take it all.
Great, really great questions coming in. So once again, if you have a question, please feel free to email that into us at infomail@graham.ca, or if you're in the audience today and want to ask a question, there's a mic stand set up for you. I'm actually going to throw this question out to all of you, and it's a general question. Did any of you have formal mentors, and do you believe formal mentorships benefit your career development?
The mentorship sort of in the construction industry, more the norm over the tenure of my career has been more informal mentorships. And you start your career and chances are you're being mentored by possibly a field supervisor, or you might be, if you're in the office, you might be mentored by a more senior person in your function. So I think that is one thing around our Building Builders program, that really all that training is going to feed into that mentorship need. And I would say that I have participated in a formal mentorship program as a mentor, and I have done it for 3 years, and I had various 30-something-year-old engineers, and this particular program was focused on professional women through the Edwards School of Business. And I would say that the executive people that were mentoring people, that network provided mentorship for me, provided a network. So I got formal mentorship while I was mentoring someone. So, you know, there is stuff out there externally, and there's lots internally. So I think lots has changed in the business around that.
As an HR guy, how about if I offer a contrarian view just a bit? I've been a part of building some pretty significant big mentoring programs, formal mentoring programs at companies like Texas Instruments and PepsiCo, and I wish I could say I was part of building a hugely successful formal mentoring program, but I haven't. I think often they get very big and very complex and difficult to run. I'm convinced the sweet spot is between having nothing and having a slightly structured informal mentoring program where you've got kind of in the DNA of our managers and senior leaders kind of what's involved. They've got a little bit of structure and some guidance in terms of some tools, and that's about it, as opposed to trying to formally link person to person and build it all out. Some tools, some process, a little bit of DNA and expectation that building others around you is important, I think is the sweet spot, and that's what we're shooting for here at Graham until we hear different from our customer base.
Over my career, there was no formal mentorship program, but I had the benefit of having a number of mentors, and each of them gave me something different. So there was technical mentoring, there was people mentoring, and to me, that was very good for me. I think it would be difficult to find one person that could provide that kind of mentorship and all of the things that you may need. So the informal network for me worked very well, and I would share Jeff's opinion that a more informal setup would be much better with some guidelines as to what it is that we're trying to get done. But certainly there are a number of mentors in the company that can give to you different things that will help you along your way.
I'd kind of agree with that. I've been fortunate enough to have some really good high-level mentors, and I think what we need to realize is we're all individuals. So a mentor can give you parts, as the guys have said, and within Graham, I think there's some fantastic mentors, and I think we should be, as individuals, we should be mentored on aspects depending on the right person. So an informal network gives you that. I've also been fortunate enough to have some real good independent coaching. And the thing that does is, because they don't know the answers, a mentor can just give you the answers. Because the coach doesn't know the answers, it gives you a lot more confidence, because a great coach will help you realize that you actually have the answers inside of you, and they'll drag them out of you. And sometimes we just can't get it out. So I would say a good combination of coaching and mentoring based on, you know, specifics that are individual to us would be the sweet spot. So, yep.
Great. Colin, what designations or professional memberships do you feel have been most advantageous for your career?
Well, I am a professional engineer. I graduated from engineering. Early days, that certainly was a benefit to me. We're in a technical business, so understanding construction and how things go together is quite important. That doesn't preclude other designations. We are a business, so understanding how business works is also very important. And really, when you get training or you get education really what that does is show us and show you that you have the ability to learn. So when you come to Graham, there's the opportunity for you to be, what you can be. And so I'm less fussed about designations and letters behind my name. I just happen to be an engineer, and certainly it benefited me early, but it's not the reason that I've succeeded. It's the fact that I am prepared to learn. I'm prepared to, or have been prepared to do the things I needed to do, and so I don't really think any particular designation will deem you to be successful or not.
Just, would you mind sharing your views on things like local associations, and particularly your involvement, on the national level, CCA, and how that's influenced your career?
Yeah, sure, thanks. Picking up on our thread earlier about getting involved, I think it's extremely important to plug into the local associations and the industry as a whole. I personally was involved with the Construction Association in Regina for 8 years on the board. I also served at a national level for 4 years. The people you meet, the things you discuss, the insights you get into the industry and the things we do, they're so beneficial to you. So, and just the whole relationship building with people and connecting with them. I would encourage all of you to get involved and learn our business. That's a key.
Great. Jason, what are some other career paths you think there are if you started out as a PM, but you maybe want to end up in a different area? Does it mean that I have to generally go to OM, or is there room to move over to a different department, do you think?
Absolutely. I think it's personal. And I think within the business that we're in, we have that flexibility. So I've seen some great superintendents that would make fantastic OMs. I've seen some great estimators that make good PMs. I don't think there's any rigidity in what we do. It's about skill set, it's about strengths and weaknesses, and it's about drive. And I think if you're smart and you're driven, then you'll figure out where you best fit. You'll figure out what's important to you. And I think within our business, as long as you sit down and work with your mentor and or your line manager, I think you can pretty much figure out most things.
We even have some examples of PMs going into our AOEs. And so, we've brought a few folks over to the dark side of HR. And so there are a lot of examples, exact.
Great. June, this question came in for you. What would you say is the one skill that has helped you the most throughout your career?
I would say that one of the skills that I've developed over the years is integrating, and the integration of people and the integration of teams. That's probably one of the strongest skills that I have. And if there's an issue of any sort, sometimes you can integrate new people into a team and transition people to other things that might be better for them. And I think you have to have that ability to sort of transition people into teams and transition people out, and always make sure that you're looking out for the best interests of them and the best interests of Graham, and putting them in the best position to succeed. Because sometimes we start projects, we transition in a team, the project changes, it grows, it shifts, it changes to some different scope, and then we have to have the confidence to transition people, and they have to understand that that's part of the job, that transition. It doesn't mean that if you're the first person there that you're in charge forever, because things, they change, they grow, they shift. And so I would say that that's probably one of the most important skills.
Wonderful. Kim, what is the best advice you've ever received?
That needs a little bit of thought. Yeah, my wife was coming to mind immediately. She she gives me a lot of advice every day, and I need every bit of it. I think the best advice that I've ever received is to be, and it's, I mean, it may not sound as compelling, but it meant a lot to me at the time, given where I was in my career, and it was to be flexible. I mean, we all have strengths and weaknesses, and one of my strengths, I suppose, is that I'm very process-oriented and very disciplined, but it's also a weakness. It can work against me. Sometimes I can be a bit too structured and a bit too rigid, and my expectations of control can maybe be a bit unreasonable. So I had some good advice from a person I would actually term a mentor a number of years ago, and that advice was, to just be flexible. The world is very complicated. It's dynamic. Graham is part of that. It's moving all of the time, and it's impossible to be able to predict everything that's going to happen, and to be able to mitigate every risk or get ahead of every outcome. So sometimes it's good to be flexible and kind of just take things as they come. And what I found is it brings out your creative side, which as a company full of engineers, that's not a trivial thing. It's I think oftentimes we have to work a little. We should work a little bit harder to bring out the creativity, the creative aspect of the construction business. So, and I think being flexible is a great way to stimulate that.
Awesome. Jeff, what's the best advice you've ever given?
I've ever given?
Yeah, to someone in their career.
Best advice I've ever given. Well,
He told me to be flexible.
Yeah, well, that's the second best. Probably the best advice I've given, I've simply repeated because it was good advice for me. So building on everything that Kim just said, it's careers are fun, complex, nonlinear, difficult things, and you got to love it, right? And the advice was make friends and build relationships along the way, because there are a few jobs out there, I suppose, where you can succeed as a solo fighter pilot kind of fellow, but not many. You're going to have to work through others. You're going to have to build relationships, and you're going to have some fun along the way, or you're just going to burn out. So that was given to me, and I've repeated it pretty frequently, I guess, through my career.
Great. Colin, did you want to add to that, or?
Just picking up on the establishing relationships. One of the things to keep in mind about our business, we think we build buildings, and which we do, and we build projects, but we actually build people and we build relationships. And every project, whatever size it is there's a team that goes together to get that done. And we need to take care of the relationships in that team, because the reality of us succeeding is that we really can't do it without having everybody in that team aligned and going the same direction. So good advice from Jeff there. Establish those relationships and take care of them, because they're important.
No, I can't help myself. I'm just going to pile in. But I think I'll say, listening to what Jeff said a few minutes ago, probably the second best piece of advice I've ever been given, and it was given to me by one of the people who currently works for me, was to have fun. Because part of we're all very driven, and the people that advance the quickest and the farthest tend to be more driven than most. And sometimes when you're that driven, you can lose sight of fun, and you forget really why you're doing what you're doing. Because if you're not having fun, if you're not enjoying the work, if you're not enjoying the people around you, then none of it really matters. So, second best piece of advice I've ever been given.
Wonderful. Well, it looks like we're down to our last 5 minutes. So I want to take this opportunity to thank all of our panel speakers today for the wonderful insights and great discussion. I also want to thank all of our audience members for your participation today in our live event. And I'm going to hand this back to Kim for some closing remarks.
Sure. So, this is new. It's something new that we've tried. As I said at the start, we're wanting to have, wanting to talk about career management, career development, in a more of a personal, hands-on, tangible, experience-based sort of a way. And this is the best approach we came up with to try to relate to an organization that's geographically dispersed. I hope it's worked very well. I'll say that we're very interested in your feedback. We want to know what you liked about this. We also, believe it or not, want to know what you maybe didn't like about it. So feel free to reach out to your managers. Feel free to reach out to HR. And let us know what you think, and we'll incorporate it going forward. I would hope to see more events like this, and it might be around the same topic, or it might be around different topics, but we'd like to know what you think. And I guess my last comment would be thanks very much to Britt for driving this and moderating, and HR generally for making it happen. They've done all the hard work and really brought it together. And then special thanks in particular to Jason and June, who had to travel today to sit on this panel, and I really, really appreciate them taking the time.
Thank you.